Hello and welcome to a Halloween special.
Yes, I know, Halloween was more than a month ago, but 2020, it struck again and there were some delays. But I wanted to get this video out to you anyway because it's still a very cool sauce. So let's get back to the video.
Today we're going to be making a spooky hot sauce, and I kind of did something similar to this a few years ago, and that one was a bit more of a joke. I had a bit of fun with that, and the weird thing was the sauce that I made actually came out pretty decent. First things first, we need to go and pick ourselves a pumpkin. I have two lovely pumpkins in my garden. Over there is a rather large one, but the one we're going to be using in the recipe today is a little bit smaller, and you'll see why I'm choosing this one because of how we're going to be processing it. It'll just be a bit difficult to do that with the bigger pumpkin. I've just given it a bit of a wash just to get any dirt off. There was a bit of dirt down this side. Not the end of the world because of how we are going to be processing it. Obviously we're not going to use the skin, and all we need to do here is prepare it, because what I'm going to be doing is smoking this. This is a parcel that was sent to me back in April, the end of April, and I received it about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, it took a little while. This was sent by one of my patrons, Jason. Thank you so much. It was really kind of you. And when I saw how much you spent on postage, I was a little embarrassed, but thank you so much. Now what this is some smoking wood, or actual barrels that have been chopped up from a distillery. So you can see there, just lovely pieces of charred wood that have been used. And I'm not only going to be using this to smoke, I'm going to be doing some other cool things with this as well, with some recipes that I'm thinking of in terms of adding some extra bit of flavor to some sauces. But if we have a look in here, we can see we got plenty of this charred wood. It really does smell good. Well, on here it says Jim Beam bourbon, or bourbon. Now I'm not going to keep these seeds, but the big pumpkin that I have over there, I will be keeping some of those so I can try and grow an even bigger one next year. And do be careful, don't go and put this into your compost, because the seeds will end up sprouting in your plants next year when you use your compost. So yeah, don't make that mistake. So we go, it's pretty cleared out there, and we'll do the other one as well. Those are looking gorgeous. I need to let them cool down a bit. They are steaming hot, and that's not going to help the next phase of our sauce preparation. We're going to be doing a fermented sauce, and for that we need some fresh chilies from our greenhouse. Here are our beautiful peppers. These here are my Antep acidity, and they are a little spicy, but where they really bring a lot to the table is they are very, very sweet. They are just absolutely delicious. Every time I go into the greenhouse, I'm so tempted to just grab one and snack on it, but they do have a bit of a burn, so you've got to be a little careful. If you don't have Antep acidity, then what you can do is you can replace them with sweet peppers and maybe add 1 or 2 more of the super hots that I'm going to be adding. So these here are my chocolate Maruga scorpions. These are some seriously hot chilies, and you'll notice I haven't got a lot. Let me bring them out here. We will weigh these things out in just a minute, but you can see there's about 5 or 6 that we have here, so not a whole lot, but they are so hot. Now, this sauce isn't meant to be blow your face off type of sauce. It is going to bring in the sweetness of the pumpkin. It's obviously going to be fermented, so it's going to have the tang of the fermentation, and of course the flavors that we're going to bring in from things like the Antep ahi dama, as well as the scorpion over there. So let's go check on our pumpkin. Let's see if it's cooled down enough so we can start taking the actual meat of the pumpkin out, and we can start weighing things, because we need to figure out how much salt we're going to add for the fermentation. Now, you may want to use gloves for this because it is smoked, so there is obviously a bit of a residue on here. You can see already my hands are getting dirty, but it's really up to you. Let's start scooping this out. So what we're going to do here, maybe a knife would be better than a spoon. The smells are incredible. The wood that I used really lasted a long time. Firstly, I was worried it would just burn up because obviously it was used for whiskey, but it actually lasted the entire time, and it really imparted a good amount of flavor here and a good amount of smoke. Because we're going to be fermenting, I need to know the weight of all our ingredients, which is the pumpkin and the chilies, and that will allow us to work out how much salt we need. We're going to be using this bucket over here to ferment. It's a 5-liter bucket that I've used a few times in the past with quite a few other ferments, and it has been cleaned and sterilized, so it's ready to go. I'm just going to put that aside. We're going to use this to weigh out the chilies. Now, you'll notice before I go and put that in there, the chilies, I've left the stalks on. Now, the reason for that is because the main ingredient here is the actual pumpkin. So the vast majority of the weight of this and the volume of this is going to be the pumpkin. The pumpkin has been cooked, which means the lactobacillus is no longer surviving on this. The only lactobacillus that's going to be introduced is from our fresh peppers. So these stalks here, they actually harbor quite a lot of the lactobacillus. So we have 900 grams of the Antep ahi damas. Let's zero that out again. We have about 35 grams of the chocolate Maruga scorpions. That is 2,620 grams of pumpkin. We have 3,550 grams of ingredients, and that means we need 3% salt, which will be around about 105 grams of salt, or 106. We'll make it 106 grams of salt. I'm using Himalayan pink rock salt, but just make sure whatever salt you use is 100% salt, no additives, and definitely not iodized salt. So there we go, that's the perfect amount. So all the peppers and the pumpkin have been mashed up, and we've got a beautiful mash there. I've added all the salt as well. What I'm going to do here, because there's quite a bit of headroom over there, I'm not very happy with that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little bit of vinegar just on the inside of the container, as well as on the lid, and that just helps any potential pathogens or anything that might want to start growing mold to not actually do that. So all we need to do now is close that up, and I need to add some brine to the airlock. You can use just normal water if you want, but I like to use brine. So this is ready now to go into the Ferminator, and I'm going to be putting this at about 21 degrees Celsius just because I need this to really start getting active up front. As you would have seen, I've added about 1/3 peppers, which are lactobacillus carrying fruit. And obviously the pumpkin doesn't have any lactobacillus because I pretty much cooked it. So we need to get it to a bit of a higher temperature up front. So I'll put it at about 21 degrees Celsius for the first probably 2 or 3 days, and then I'll bring it back down to about 20 degrees Celsius for the remaining time.
It's been almost 2 months now since we started the fermentation, so it's time to go and check on it, see how we did. That looks and smells absolutely perfect. You can see there's a bit of separation. I haven't been stirring it or anything. I know that some people do like to stir their mashes when they're fermenting, but I don't see the need. There's a little bit of calm yeast I can see, but very, very minimal. So that is an absolutely perfect fermentation in my opinion. These are the other ingredients we're going to be using for our sauce. Up front, these are some beautiful autumn spices. We have some cinnamon sticks, some ground nutmeg, and some cloves. Back here, this is erythritol, which is basically a sugar, but it is a 0-calorie sugar. It does not get used up by lactobacillus, so it cannot be processed in a fermentation. That's not really entirely important here because if the pH is low enough, then it actually won't process the sugar anyway. So if the pH is below about 3.4, then you could use normal sugar if you want. I just prefer not to use sugar where I can avoid it. Now, if you are going to use plain sugar for this, if you want to be 100% sure that this is not going to continue fermenting when you add the sugar, then just go and put it on the stove at about 65 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes, and that should kill off the lactobacillus. Alternatively, like I said, measure this with your pH meter, which I will be doing in just a little while. And if it is below about 3.4 pH, then the lactobacillus will become dormant, which means that it won't process any more sugars, so you won't get any bottle bombs or anything like that. So there we go, that is beautifully ground up. You can use a spice grinder if you want, an electric one, but I kind of enjoy using the pestle and mortar. So next step is to combine all these ingredients and blend them up. Wow, I can really actually smell the smoky flavors that we added. It wasn't very upfront the first time I opened it up. It was more of the hot chilies that I could smell, but now I'm really getting that subtle sort of smoked flavor. I thought it was going to be a bit more apparent, but it's really coming through now, and it's going to be interesting to see how this tastes. Anyway, I need to get this into my jug, but I don't want to pour it because I know I'll spill everywhere. So I'm going to use my ladle. Now, just remember, if you are using anything that's going to touch your sauce, make sure that it is thoroughly cleaned. So these bowls are all properly cleaned and also sanitized. So I use Star San, which is a no-rinse acid sanitizer, and just give everything a good spray. This is clean anyway, but this just gives it a refresher. Wow, that is awesome. Okay, wow, yeah, the smoky flavor is really coming through strong now. Wow, let's just get this in here and start blending it up. And I'm still spilling even with the ladle. Still got a decision to make whether I make this any thinner, but I actually think I want it to be a nice thick sauce. So look at that. Oh, the smells are incredible. Again, I wish I had smell-o-vision. YouTube need to get on that. It'd be amazing for you guys to be able to smell this. Be careful with that thing. The smells here are just incredible. The smokiness is really coming through now, and I'm really wanting to taste it. But before we do that, I wanted to test the pH, just see how we did with our fermentation and also see what the ending sort of pH is. Beautiful. Okay, don't need too much. There we go. Now I have calibrated this already, so it is ready to go. And all I need to do is get it on and see how we did. Still coming down. And we are at 3.6. So if I was going to be adding normal sugar in this, so you can see over there, 3.6. If I was going to be adding normal sugar to this, I would be heating it up because it's on the cusp. It's not going to be a very active fermentation if it does start fermenting again with the sugar that gets added. However, it still is above the 3.4, which is kind of my safety zone, so that it doesn't continue fermenting. So in this scenario, I would definitely be heating this up beyond about 65 degrees Celsius for around 10 minutes to kill off the fermentation. So that's it. When you are testing, don't go and put this back into the bowl. That's just not hygienic and just not a good idea. So I need to go and clean this up, and I'll be right back with you. By the way, if you are looking for a good pH meter, this Apera is a really good one. I'll leave a link down below in the description. It's a little bit on the more expensive side of the pH meters. You can get ones for about $10 or £10, those yellow ones that you see online, but those work just as well. Because I'm doing so many sauces and because I use this so often, I wanted one that had a couple more features and was a bit more robust. I've had this for more than a year now, I believe, and it's still absolutely perfect. I think it's about time that I give this a taste. I'm going to take some out of this so I don't waste it. Like I said, do not put it back in there, but to give it a bit of a cheeky taste, no problem at all. Let me just cover this up. I don't want this exposed to dust, etc. So here we go. I'm not going to have the whole lot because that'd be a bit silly. It's very thick, and I think I'm going to keep it like that. I'm not going to add any vinegar to this or water or anything like that. I'm going to leave it as it is. I'm going to be selling a few select bottles of this. So if you guys want to get hold of one, it's first come, first serve. Sorry that there isn't more of it. But when I'm doing these experimental ones, I don't make huge batches of it. But those of you that do get hold of it, I hope that you'll feed back your opinion. But this is my opinion. Let's give it a taste. I'm not going to do that much. I don't know how hot this is. It shouldn't be ridiculously hot, but let's see. Smokiness right up front. That smokiness hits it. The heat comes on slowly. There is heat. I would say a little bit hotter than Tabasco, but there's other spices and that'll come in. I'm glad I added a bit of sweetness. Could maybe do with a little bit more sweetness potentially. It really depends on your tastes. For me, yeah, I could probably do with a little bit more sweetness myself. I'm not going to modify this anymore. I'm going to leave it as it is, as you've seen me do it. I do make notes. Oh, I went down the wrong way. Whew. Those chocolate marugas are no joke. Yeah, that spice builds. It's not insanely hot, but it definitely has a burn. The Antep ahidomas, I think the flavor is a bit too subtle for me to be able to tell that they're Antep ahidomas. So, like I said earlier in the video, if you don't have the Anteps, then you can use bell peppers, things like that if you want. Obviously, just compensate with a little bit more heat maybe if you do want it a bit spicier. And of course, if you want to make this ridiculously hot, throw in a bunch of scorpions or reapers or a few more chocolate marugas. But that is nice. That is really nice. I'm just trying to think, what would I have this on? The smokiness, instantly I'm thinking ribs. That would be actually pretty good as a base if you want some spicy ribs. The pumpkin flavor is there. I think, I don't know a heck of a lot about pumpkins. I don't grow them very often, but I'm pretty sure that there are some sweeter ones or some more flavorful pumpkins that you can use. And that might make quite a change to the sauce. But the pumpkin I used here, I can taste it. Definitely adds a nice texture. So hopefully you can see that. It's a very thick sauce. It probably goes well also on pork chops, if you're going to have pork chops. Sandwiches, I think. A bacon sandwich, actually. I think this would be quite good in that. But not a bad experiment. I think that the smoking really does add a whole new dimension to this, and I want to experiment more with my smoking. I want to try different woods. I want to try smoking different vegetables, or even just smoking my peppers, of course. That's an obvious one. I was trying to go with something a little bit less obvious. But smoking definitely adds a whole new dimension to this. All that's left for me to do now is to bottle this up and put it up in my store. Now, this is a small batch. It's an experimental batch. There's only about 4 or 5 liters, which means limited numbers of bottles. So by this time of the video, potentially, they may have been sold out. You guys are so quick in buying these things. But go check it out. The link is in the description below for my shop. And if it is in stock, then see if you can snag yourself one. If not, there's some other sauces and spices and other goodies in my store that may interest you. Your support on my store really means a lot. Helps the channel, helps me continue doing these things, and you know, I'm very thankful to you. So if you do go and buy something from my store, just remember it goes straight back into this channel, goes straight back into putting these videos out for you guys. I'm interested to know, what experiments have you done this year? What sauces have you made? What interesting new things have you tried? Let me know in the comments down below if there's some interesting successes and also failures. The failures are sometimes just as helpful as the successes. But let me know in the comments below what's been your favorite sauce this year, and also what's maybe been your biggest failure in terms of a sauce this year. Always interested to hear what you guys are saying. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. And until the next one, stay safe and stay spicy.